Welcome to the Express Soul Health and Wellness Podcast. In each episode, you'll learn from experts about the best practices and technologies to live a happier, healthier, and hopefully a longer life. Here is your host, Claudia Erdenola.
Hello, my name is Claudia Urdinola. I am a professional engineer with curiosity for learning better ways to stay healthy for longer time. Every week, I bring different experts on health and wellness to teach us better ways, strategies, new technologies, new supplements, new nutritional protocols that we can be implementing in our daily lives for better health on our bodies, minds, and souls. So together, you and I are learning with those experts every week on those leading edge technologies and different strategies for us to stay happier, healthier for longer time. This episode is brought to you by Espresso Coffee. Espresso Coffee is our brand of coffee, and we are very proud to bring this clean brand of coffee to the market. We created Espresso Coffee with your health in mind. What that means, our coffee is authentic coffee because we know where our coffee come from. It comes from small farms in Colombia, in Guatemala, Honduras, also in the high altitude mountains of Brazil. It is very good because it's hand-picked, means that all our farmers are preserving the qualities and the integrity of the coffee plants. They also are very careful with the environment because they really understand the value of the trees, the birds, the clean waters that nurtures those beautiful plants and bring those nutrients to the coffee beans. We assure that during the roasting process, we are respecting the nutritional values on the coffee beans. So when you are drinking our coffees, you are getting the optimized nutritional levels on each cup. Not only the nutritional elements that are in the coffee bean, also all of those antioxidants and minerals that are good for your health. So if you would like to order our coffees, go to www.expressolcoffee.com. Also visit the description box below. We have the website and a discount code that we are offering to you, our listeners and subscribers. Today's episode is a special one. We are talking about how is to grow old in America. We're going to talk about the elder population in the United States and how can we improve that process of aging, how we can bring different ways of looking at our golden years in a much positive way. Our guest today is Dr. Kerry Burnight. She is a PhD. She was a professor of geriatric medicine for nearly 2 decades, and she is the founder of the advisory firm, the Gerontologist, Inc. She was also co-founder and director of the nation's first Elder Abuse Forensic Center and the national nonprofit Ageless Alliance United Against Elder Abuse. For 5 years, she also served on the executive leadership of the team or a company called Grand Pad, a technology firm that was connecting over 100,000 older adults using custom engineered tablets. So Dr. Burnight brings all of this expertise in gerontology and technology to the use to the older adults in America. And this is exciting because we're going to be discussing with Dr. Burnight better ways of aging and what can be those new strategies and new ways of looking at the elder adult here in America. So if this is something that you're interested in, please keep on watching. And if you haven't subscribed to our podcast, please subscribe right here and hit the notification button so you will be notified every time we're bringing new content to our podcast. So here with us is Dr. Kerry Burnight. If you like the content of our podcast, subscribe to our channel and hit the notification button. Help us to spread the word on health and wellness. Also, check out our sponsors us. We have great discounts for our listeners. And follow us in our social media outlets. We really appreciate your support. Thank you. So, Dr. Kerry Burnight, welcome to Express All Health and Wellness Podcast.
Well, I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
We're happy to have you. You are a gerontologist, and this is something, isn't a specialty in medicine that is not too common to find. I would like to ask you, what was that aha moment? What was the epiphany in your life that you felt so inclined to dedicate your life to the elderly population, to the old adults?
I have the unusual situation that I felt like I was born a gerontologist. And the reason for that is that my mother and father had two teenage kids in high school, and my mom was feeling sick. And she went to the doctor, and he said, "You won't believe it, but you're pregnant." So, from the minute that I was born, my parents both had gray hair. And when people would say things that were not nice about older people, I would always take it personally. So I would say, "Oh, yes, older people can do that," you know. So I was lucky all growing up. And then after college, when I learned that there was a field of gerontology and geriatric medicine, I was just so delighted to get my studies underway.
This is so awesome. And, culturally speaking, we see in other cultures, maybe in Asia, where the elderly population is very much respected and venerated. Here in Western world, our older population is at some point, I can say that it is not as respected as in other places in the world. I am a Colombian American, and from the Latin heritage and culture, I would say our abuelos, our grandmothers and grandfathers, they are in our homes until the moment they die. We don't normally, regularly take them to nursing homes, so they're part of our family until the day they die, and their wisdom is very valued on when raising the grandchildren, and just basically having all the family around. So that is a little bit different here in the States, don't you think?
It is, and that is so beautiful when families are together. Everyone wins because you younger people have the benefit of the wisdom and patience and humor and creativity of older adults. And I think our society, our Western society, uh, it suffers as a result of segregating the ages that way.
So the aging process, Dr. Burnight, that is intriguing because we are aging since the moment we're born, but we consider our older adults from what age specifically?
It varies, but generally in the US, it seems like 65 is sort of an arbitrary cutoff that people start. But you can join AARP at age 50, and many times age doesn't tell you much. I have a patient who is 80 who is water skiing, and a patient who is 60 who is confined to bed. So age is a real just proxy for what's really going on with our health span.
And from your medical perspective, what are those key elements that contribute to the aging process? Why we have such a disparity between the 80-year-old that you're describing and the 60-year-old that you're describing as well? And I can tell you this real quick. My husband is 75 years old. Nobody will believe that man. He is super healthy and fit in the, he really, really, really exercise, and he keeps himself in a great physical, mental shape. He still is working, he's retiring, but he's still working, he's very active. So
Yes.
what are those factors from the medical perspective that make such a difference between one old adult to another that is not as healthy?
I love that question. So there's a number of factors, but the first one that I'm going to start with, because to me it's the most important, it is your expectation of what older age is going to be like. So if you believe that everything is decline and that everything in life is just going to go right downhill, that's exactly what will happen. So that's why it's incredibly powerful to understand that many things get better as you get older. But it's not highly known. And the reason is because the fear of anti-aging tells us it's terrible, it's scary, you will be ugly and worthless and irrelevant. It's a $64 billion a year industry telling us that it's so awful. But when you look at the literature, when you get to know older adults, what you find is that things that get better as you get older include you don't care as much what people think. You have greater appreciation for an acceptance of yourself and other people. You appreciate beauty. You have better problem solving. You have greater calm and resilience, the grit that you have to overcome. So step one is mindset. It's everything. So choose between a decline mindset and a growth mindset. Choose growth every time. And if you hear yourself thinking or saying, oh, I can't do that, or I'm bad at that, banish that thought and say, I got this. I can do this. I'm still in the game. And then because of that, you will act accordingly. So as I'm sure your husband does, you move, you exercise every day, you get out there. When you have something that hurts, and if it's not going to make it worse, get out there anyway. If you have a headache, do it anyway. So we got to be kind of tough with ourselves that we're going to move our bodies. We're going to put good, natural, whole foods in our bodies with nutrition. We're going to keep hydrated. We're going to sleep 8 hours a night. We're going to meditate, and we're going to have social connection with other people because that's critical to our minds.
I think to mention, out of all of those factors, we discuss each of them here in our podcast every week. And we expect that, learning from nutrition and from good sleeping and exercising, that's key factors.
Yes.
But you mentioned intentional living. That
Yes.
is so powerful and beautiful because you are absolutely right. And something that and I'm telling you because my husband is 75 and nobody believes that. Forget it. But it's because he keeps his mind so sharp. He is telling his body every day, age is just a number for me. I need to get in my gym, work out, do my bicycle, go and do punching the bag, and then he put the Rocky music loud.
Yes.
So he's like Rocky Balboa. But it's some kind of like mental training that his body will respond accordingly. That is so key. And then you mentioned relationships. And here is my next question. You live in California. In California, we have one of the blue zones, and blue zones, for people who don't know, are those areas in the world where we have concentrations of older people living very healthy for longer time. So the health span is incredible. And when many people are investigating and going to research on those blue zones, we have one in California, and then what they find out is that, okay, not in everywhere in the world, in those different blue zones, in Japan, in Italy, in Greece, in Costa Rica, here in the States, in California, not everybody is the same. So it's really not down to nutrition. They found some of those folks in Japan and blue zone, I believe it's Okinawa, where they find out they smoke, they drink, they party, and they are 110, 105, and they're perfectly fine. So it's not exactly that they don't drink and they don't smoke. So what it comes down to, and in what is a common factor there, is the relationships.
That's exactly right. Yes, here in Loma Linda, California, they have
Linda.
a very connected community and people care about one another. And it brings up your very good point that we benefit as a society when different ages can come together. So I get in my mid 50s get energy from being around a 3-year-old, and the 3-year-old can get some things from me that they couldn't get from their 20 or 30-year-old parent. And then my friend who's 110 can add so much to the conversation. So if we can intentionally try to, what I call, diversify our social portfolio, just like we diversify our financial portfolio, we've got to mix it up so our friends are different ages, different ethnic backgrounds is so beneficial, different races, different sexual preferences, any kind of and socioeconomic status. The more we can shake it up, the more we're going to bolster and stimulate ourselves.
And also the learning process. I actually was interviewing a neurosurgeon, Dr. Figueiredo. It was 2 weeks ago, and he was telling me, because he did his postgrad in Loma Linda, and he was telling me, Claudia, it was so common to see the people coming to the university at the age of 70, going to do master's degrees, PhDs. They want to learn. They want to keep themselves, always learning something different. And you see groups of people learning pottery, some others going to do exercise into the park. It was quite remarkable, and I think that probably is what we should be focusing as we aging. It is really getting more involved in social activities and tightening our relationships with our circle around. Do you notice that this is something that influenced the aging process in a good way?
Very much. And it's that word again, growth. How are you growing? What are you doing that is going to teach you something new, or get out of your comfort zone to learn an instrument, or go to a social event that you might not feel comfortable in? All of these things are growth. And also in Loma Linda, there's also faith, sharing the belief that there is something beyond this exact material world is also, it gives us hope, but also it gives us growth because we're always learning. So yeah, I think growth cannot be underestimated.
And connection. And we noticed during the years of COVID, that was the aspect that was more, I'll say, sadly, was more affected in our elderly population, because having them isolated and scared really didn't help for, in their own process, if they were in nursing homes, not be able to see their family and everything. So now those years are over. We value more and more, and we understood what good practices were at that time and which ones were not good. Probably that one, to keep them isolated, were not. So how we can, I would say, apply those lessons today to 2023 after COVID? What are those lessons that we say, okay, we shouldn't do this anymore?
What a great question. So I think, of course, we at the time didn't know
Yes.
what, if people were going to pass away. So I'm not casting any blame on how it went. But moving forward, we know that we need to put into place both external opportunities for people to interact with people. And if something happens again like that, where we have contagion factors, there need to be internal ways to create connection. And so in person is always my most favorite, but if there isn't, we need to have a way in advance that we can connect on Zoom, on tablets, on FaceTime. And I think there'll be more and more creative ways that we can think about connecting with other humans. And I was involved within a nursing home. We have humans there together. And when it's a pristine environment and there's not outside influences, then the humans inside together should be together and doing things and learning things and, having opportunities. And so I do look back on that time, and I think there were many of my patients who were just in their rooms by themselves, like solitary confinement. That's the worst punishment we can give somebody.
Yes.
In a jail is solitary confinement. So it seems that there shouldn't be any scenario in which we have to have people entirely alone, because humans are not meant for that.
Exactly. I mean, in actually all living creatures in general, we thrive in communities. And I was a farmer at one point, and I can tell you that it was a big understanding. And when I mention this, some people don't understand, but I really learned a lot about humans by living with animals. Just no, it was interesting because I was when we are at cities, we don't see from outside our own society how we are organized as humans, what how we thrive. And I was there at that farm, and I was by myself for a long, long time. My husband was traveling Monday to Friday, so I was in charge of the farm all the time,
Wow.
and I had to be very close. And I had a lot of cattle, and they were very special, very close to my heart. And I see them organized. I see them in groups helping each other. When they were nursing, the older cow was going to drink and eat first. The young ones were taking care of the babies, and then when the older one come, they were released and they will go and drink and eat. It was a perfect society and organization and cooperation. I learned a lot from them. But as biological beings, creations from God, we really thrive in community. So you're absolutely right. I think a big lesson moving forward, and not only because on nursing homes, for us, we are, I mean, I'm like you, mid-50s, we're aging, and this is the time we should be closer to our family and friends, and thriving and being happier, is liberated. So now let me ask you the next question, and this is interesting. We understand that with all of these technologies that we have available today, there are strategies for better aging, because it's not such a thing that we age, but to slow down the pace of aging. And now we know that also not all the organs age at the same pace. There maybe your heart is younger than your brain, depends on what had been like the health history of each person. But in your medical experience today, can we say that we can slow down the aging process?
There are experts who would say that that is the case. So there is a book that says Why We Age and Why We Don't Have to, and it goes into, from a biological perspective, also the work of Peter Attia talks about these kind of
Very
outlive.
interesting.
And so I think, yes, and I like your point about the variability of our organ systems, and each person is sort of having a different arrangement. I think a lot of the popular books are about how not to age. And I have a little different perspective where I think of it as how to age, because I don't believe that it is accurate that we're going to not age, or if you do everything right, you will, I have seen for the past 30 years, you will still age and you will still die. And it's not a defeat. You didn't do anything wrong. So my view is a little different, which is we are going to get older. And how can you do that in a way that's going to maximize your joy, your relevance, your vitality, your life, your safety? So I support my colleagues who are on a mission to slow down or even stop aging. And that's their work, and I support it. And my work is to say, given that we're going to age, how can we do it in the best possible way?
I love it. I love it. And it's true. It's not, and again, that term anti-aging is like, you can't stop it. But better aging, we are going there, but how we can do that process with less pain and more joy. And it's basically what we're learning here in all of these strategies, and in, what we can do to make that process less painful and more joyful.
Yes.
so to
And
speak.
yeah, like really using what gets better as we get older. So it is, for example, with joy, like we all would like joy. There are intentional ways that you can choose to focus on certain things and not focus on other things. So I have a dear friend who has metastasized cancer that started in the colon and now it's in the liver and in the lungs. And so everyone's like, how are you still, she enjoys her friends and she enjoys music and she's just beautiful. How are you doing this when you have terminal cancer? And she is the one who said, can choose what I focus on. And every time all the, I'm going to die or chemo and all these kinds of things, I can choose to put my attention back over here. And that choice is everything. So she is so interested in learning new things. She's so interested in each of us. Every time I see her, she asks all about my book and she remembers what I said. And so there are many, many techniques where we can use things to make that aging process so much better. And I have thousands of patients who are doing exactly that. And I'm lucky enough to have a mom who is 94 and she is doing these techniques in a very successful way. She is as happy and as strong and as admirable at 94 more than any other age, more than when she was 34, more than when she was 54. She's better every year. And that's what I really hope that we can all learn to do.
Absolutely. And for those, my listeners, I highly encourage you to go and see Dr. Burnight TikTok, because her mother is in those TikToks and she is absolutely adorable. I love to see her in those videos, and hey, 95 never looked so beautifully.
Thank
She's
you.
she's so wonderful.
I'm going to record another one tomorrow. And what's so amazing, when I make them, I have to practice a little. Not my mom. It's just one single take and she gets it right the first time. And it's so natural and honest. I can learn a lot from her.
Beautiful. I mean, I saw the beginning to the end. It's like she had it scripted. It's so
Yes,
perfect.
I know. And I say to her, how do you do this? And she goes, well, Kerry, you just get over yourself. Just talk. Don't think about it. And she's
Well, I
right.
need to tell her to teach me. I'm still learning on the
Me
TikTok.
too. Me too. I delete it.
So you see, this is one of the many things that our older population can learn how to have joy, and this is a technology that our kids are using. And actually, this is my next question, because very important part of the work that you do is on working on these technologies, basically to bridge the gap between these younger generations that are all digital, everything including money. You see these kids, you don't have to give them money for anything. Everything, the allowance is all digital. They know how to move apps, pay the friend, go here, go there. Everything it is at the fingertips of their phones. When we are now dealing with the artificial intelligence, where everything goes so fast, technology is really going at speeds that we never thought before. How we can maintain our older population, the older adult, connected and still understanding and living and mobilizing in society with these technological tools that can be a little bit challenging.
Yes, what a great question. You nail these questions. So there are two parts to this. One is, it is not true that older adults are averse to technology. Older adults can absolutely learn it. They can use it. They can enjoy it. And so taking some time, if you have someone in your life who is interested in learning something and it's something that you know how to do. So like with my mom, it's new to her to order her groceries on her phone because she's used to going in the car and going and getting it. And so I leave it up to her. Would you rather drive? She drives. Would you like to go get it? And some days she does, and that's great because it gets her out. But other days she has congestive heart failure and she's too tired. So we together have learned how to order it in a way that she can press the button. Does it take a couple of times to learn? Yes, but it takes anybody a couple of times to learn. So we mustn't assume that older people can't learn new things. That's just not true. My second part, though, is there is such an opportunity to be taken advantage of. At every age, there are scammers and predators and awful people who are robbing us of $37 billion a year. So I worked for many years in an elder abuse and forensic center, and we dealt with financial exploitation. So I just caution all of your listeners that when working with a new form of technology, to be careful. And so that means passwords, to have a systematic way where you keep your passwords, but not in a general place. You know, a lot of times people in their houses, they would list out their passwords. I don't recommend that. And also, when you get emails requesting information, or somebody calls you on the phone saying, we need this or that, we live in a day and age where you need to be very cautious. And one way to protect yourself is to be connected with other people. So these predators are looking for older adults who don't have anybody else. And so they say, hey, hi, hi, Mary, I'm your friend. Trust me. Send me some money. They give really good and convincing reasons. Like, I have almost fallen prey to it because it's so convincing. So if you have friends that you trust, you can run it by them. You can say to your friend, this person that reached out to me on my email and said that I need to send money in order for this and that. Your friend will say, no, don't do it. Let's take a look at it together. Oh, no, this isn't right. So that's why having friendships matters. Not only is it good for our brain and our body, it's also good for our safety and security, because it can be pretty dangerous out there in the digital world alone.
That is so true. And actually, I saw a program this weekend when they were showing those cases. They say this is a very, unfortunately, it's a crime that is more popular than people think because it's not reported.
Yes.
They get the person who was targeted felt very, very ashamed that he fell into the scam, and they don't say anything to the police.
Yes.
The brave ones that go and just go on and say what happened and describe the person who did it or whatever are the ones that are being counted for. But I say that also all of that is great, but also technology should be helping to identify those kind of scammers, because they can be very convincing. I saw some cases in that program where they were into the extent to go to that elder and check Facebook. They knew they have some nephews. They call, they say, hey, auntie, is such and such your nephew? I'm in trouble. Don't call my mom. This is, please, I need your help. Send me $2,000, 400, whatever. I mean, it was a lady that lost almost $200,000 in a scam like that. It was a lot of money, and 200,000, and then in repeated occasions, because they were saying they needed more for the lawyer to take that person out of trouble. Whole mess. So technologies. What kind of technologies are available right now to assist our older adults to prevent those scams?
Yes. So I love that you watch that. They call that the grandparent scam, and it's very common. And they're able to even voices. Like, I've heard
With AI.
Yeah, it's just amazing. And you would 100% believe that that's your loved one. And you're absolutely right about the shame. I have so many patients who say, I'm so ashamed that I lost that money. And the message is, there's no shame on you. The shame is on those criminals who are going out of their way to steal money that people need for their medicines, for their health care, for their housing, for their food. And I think your question was good, which was how can technology itself ensure the safety of its users? Because I really agree with you that we need the companies to put in the work and the effort to say, it's a responsibility that you are making profit off of us as users. So you need to be doing what you can in terms of notifying. And there are certain technologies that, for example, there was a company that I was involved with called GrandPad that made a tablet that was just for seniors, that it was very, very safe in the sense that nobody can get in. It's just you and your contacts, and it was a simplified version. The majority of older people don't need that because they can navigate just fine on a traditional phone. So there are solutions that are, if somebody, for example, is living with Alzheimer's disease, it is something you would particularly want to think about some specialized senior things. But there are, for the vast majority of older adults, are not cognitively impaired and can use traditional apps the way that we do, with that caveat of it's great to not be the only one knowing what you're involved with. It's wonderful if you can reach out to others to let them know, oh, I just started using, for example, online banking. And that somebody else knows, like, okay, let's kind of make sure that together we're protecting one another.
That is a great point. And I would like to ask you, Dr. Burnight, about your initiative. You are the founder and CEO of Gerontologist Inc. I would like for you to tell us what exactly is that advisory company about?
Thanks for asking. What I was finding, so I had many years as a university professor, which I loved, and then I did some work. So some companies who are innovating in the aging space, they want to and need to understand the adults that they serve. And so they want to have a gerontologist. And so it's the gerontologist.com, it's called, is a place that companies can go in order to work with a gerontologist. So I sit on advisory boards, and I have a few companies who are just incredibly exciting. So I'm working with one company, and they're providing primary geriatric care delivered right into your home. So everything you need is right at home. The nurses come to you, the testing comes to you, and it's so exciting because for so many years we're helping really, really sick people, and yet we required them to get to the clinic, to get from the parking lot into the clinic, and from the chair to the chair, and patients would be just exhausted by the time. So that part of it, this being able to provide care in remote settings, is very exciting. There are really tens of thousands of companies innovating in this space, but you always want to be wary. If companies aren't listening to older people, then they're not going to be delivering solutions that are right. And if they don't incorporate the expertise of people who work with older people, so it's been a pleasure to work with many companies.
And those services are nationwide. I mean, these are companies that serve all.
Yeah, actually
continental US.
international. So yes, I
Wow.
had a client in Israel where they're doing a lot of interesting innovation. And this client, it had to do with passive monitoring for adults in their homes, so that if somebody called out in the night, then it used the AI to identify what was a normal sound and what's not a normal sound. And then it could get to a caregiver to check in. And so it was really fun for me because I had never heard someone when they're by themselves in the middle of the night. And so I had some patients that I thought were just fine, but in the night you would hear them crying and calling out for help. And it was moving because I thought, how much have I missed because I didn't hear what people called out for when they were alone. So yeah, it's pretty exciting what we're developing.
That field of supporting the needs of the older adult, I think is beautiful because, again, culturally speaking, there is not too much focus on the older population. In fact, it's more like, it's old, let's move it to another location. It shouldn't be here home. Somebody can take care of them, and that is like we need to totally change the paradigm if it's possible, to just consider that those years are precious because are the last years that they're gonna be within us. So, Dr. Burnight, I see where all of the companies that you work with, they are innovating in the space of bringing conveniences, and I would say improving the way that healthcare and care for the adults, the older adults, can be practiced. But in general, in your opinion, where are those areas where you think us as a nation, as the United States of America, and our healthcare system, are those areas where we should be improving, putting more our box in instead of words to support the older population?
Yeah, love that. We had 10,000 more Americans turn 65 every day. So you imagine there's just so many of us turning 65, then turning 75 every day. 10,000 more, 10,000 more. So there's going to be a lot of us. And what that means is it's a great thing because we're going to have all this additional wisdom and humility and grit and strength and humor. And there's also going to be greater care needs because we have more acute needs, more chronic needs, more challenge with our vision and hearing and mobility and transportation. So we need as a society to think about these care needs and how we can address that. And what I'm particularly interested in is caregiving needs, because many people are lucky enough to have a spouse or a family member who can help them in times of need. Many people don't have that safety net. So they're, just one surgery away from being unable to live where they're living. So if we can come up with caregiving solutions that will increase the number of caregivers and will find ways to make it cost effective so that it provides enough cost of living for the caregiver, because this is really important work, and provide the care that the older adult needs. And there are getting to be some creative models on how we do that, but it needs more and more information, more innovation on how we can provide care that is loving, that is safe, that is person-centered, and people want to stay in their own homes. So how can we enable people to stay in their own homes with more caregiver options? And one company that I'm consulting for, Care Academy, is training caregivers, and that matters so much. And something that they did that I think is so neat is that they, in some areas, the courses that the caregivers are taking also apply, could be used for college credits, so that it can advance women, it's largely women, largely minority women, who, it's such an important work. And if we see it as such and say that the training can also be used for college credits, that made me feel proud of that company that they were doing that.
That is a nice initiative, absolutely. So our health system is more focused into fix the broken. So caregiving is where the care is needed, but what about preventive medicine?
Yes, I love it. That is where it is. So sometimes I think of, as doctors, it's like we're at the bottom of a skateboard ramp, and people are going to go down the skateboard ramp and then they're going to fall, and then you're going to fix what broke. But we shouldn't be at the bottom of the skateboard ramp. We need to be up at the top of the skateboard ramp, preventing the fall in the first place. And so you are 100% right. So what does prevention look like? What can we do to knowingly prevent what we know is going to happen? So I'll give one example. It is very common that as we get older, our mobility changes, our ability to feel the bottom of our feet changes. We get some neuropathy and some numb, and as a result, we fall. And falls are devastating because so often we break a hip, you can't take care of ourselves, we have to move. So in terms of prevention, there are programs that have to do with strengthening people, assessments that you can do in your house to say like, wow, I actually had a patient fall yesterday, and it was just 3 steps down in the garage. And when I went to see it, you could see there was no railing. And for 50 years, this couple lived there and it was okay. But they were in their 80s. And if I or anyone had seen the situation, you would say, you need to put in a rail. And then
Right
that wouldn't
away.
have,
Yeah.
right, it wouldn't have happened. So a lot of times when I see these things afterwards, I think, oh, if there was a way that we could be more proactive to prevent the things that we know happen. And, there are so many ways and so many resources out there, but we need to get the message that it's not them, it's us. So a lot of times you go, oh, that's good for older people. But we need to start going, hey, you know what? I'm 54. 54-year-olds fall. So I should start practicing what I'm
Absolutely.
saying. Yeah.
I mean, mobility is something that is so important as we age, building the muscle mass and getting our bodies in motion is so important. And actually, my next question, because that's from the physical part, but also we'll see an increase in decline on the mental capacities. I would say, mental health has been in decline since in the last 5 years, and it really took a hit during COVID because of the fear, the isolation, and depression. People were drinking and over worried and all of that. But it really, what we can do to prevent or improve mental health for the older adult, Dr.
Yes,
Burnight.
love that question. So we think about things that to do with our mind in 2 ways. One is our cognitive ability. So that is how the brain works. Another, we think about dementia, and a lot of times people don't quite understand that dementia is like the umbrella. So dementia and cognitive impairment are the same. And within that umbrella, there is Alzheimer's disease. There is, dementia as a result of strokes or Huntington's disease or Parkinson's disease. So that's that part of it. And that matters. And we can talk about that. And then the other part is mental health. And so mental health, depression, anxiety, feeling like life isn't worth living. And cognition, like cognitive ability, and mental health are very connected as well. So when you are feeling depressed and anxious, it also hurts your brain and how well your brain processes. And so a lot of times we can clear up somebody's mental health. We can get it addressed with either with counseling, sometimes with medication, sometimes just with exercise and diet and
Nutrition,
sleep. Yes, exactly. And
hormones.
yeah, hormones, absolutely. Yes. And then we find that their cognition clears up as well. So everybody's recognition that nobody is immune to we all need to take care of our mental wellness. And we're starting to understand that it's not like, oh, those people, they have mental health problems. No, we all have mental health problems sometimes.
So is this again, as much as we can get information out there through these channels, people are listening this podcast. They're driving their cars, they're listening. They're doing cleaning the kitchen, they're listening. They're doing chores, they're listening. And we have people, such as yourself, doctors in other disciplines, bringing us information that we have to put like the wheel of wellness is how I call it. And each specialty is one of those spokes. It's not one. So it's nutrition. We had a doctor here, Dr. Gutradaria. He was a specialist on the microbiome, telling us the huge impact on having good nutrition and bringing balance to your gut, the huge impact on mental health, depression, anxiety, hormonal balance for us ladies more than in men. The as we post menopause, all of those hormones that are depleted can cause tremendous mental problems and depression as well. In terms of the cognitive abilities that you were describing in on the umbrella of the dementia, Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and all of that, saunas. We got interventions that are easy as saunas. It's not a medicine. You don't have to take any pill. Just get the heat, the stressful heat. Getting into a sauna more than four times a week can improve tremendously detoxification of the body. And they have clinical studies showing that it can even reverse Alzheimer's disease. I mean, something as simple as sauna. So I think as much as we can push preventive medicine and actually, pushing our system to become more aware of that, if the effort is put in preventive measurements, we don't have to wait for the older adult to get so broken.
Yes,
And
what a great point you make. And what I would like people to know is that doing these self-care, it is not selfish. It is a good investment, because either you will use the money now to pay for a gym membership and a sauna and healthy organic foods and these things, or you'll pay much more later in healthcare fees. So take this time today to think, what's one thing that I can do to start with that will be preventive care for me? I'm worth signing up for that yoga class. Or if I don't have the money to join a class, wow, how can I get it free? Which on the internet, there's so many classes that we can access for free, but it's taking the time to say, it's not selfish for me to stop what I'm doing and saying, listen, everybody, you're going to have to wait because I'm going to do some meditation right now, or I'll make dinner later, but first I'm going to go to the sauna. And when I'm done with that sauna, I'm going to come home and take a shower, and then we'll talk about dinner.
right behind this computer, I have a full equipped gym and a very nice sauna. I go every
I
night.
can believe it. Well, what you're doing is working, so I'm happy that you're sharing that. That's
Oh, the
wonderful.
sauna is the best, the best, the best. I mean, I can tell you this. My husband couldn't sleep, and he was for years hooked to pills to sleep at night. Forget about those things. We got this sauna about 6 months ago, if it's not more, probably 7. No pills. After the sauna, take a shower, sleep like a baby with no pills, interventions, or anything. 8, 9 hours of sleeping, perfect. I mean, the quality of sleeping improved immensely just by going into the sauna. So I really think and it's nothing that isn't a pill or is a medicine.
Yes, no
Doesn't
side
hurt.
effects.
No,
Yes.
it's all preventive medicine. And again, things that we can do, and learning from good nutrition practices, and understanding how our over processed foods can be tremendously disrupting our microbiome, our gut, and all of that leaky gut can be also a precursor, cause of mental illness. So, Dr. Burnight, if it's a message, if it was in your hands, if it was in your hands to say, okay, I'm gonna put down a plan in America to make the life of the older adult better, what that will look like?
That would be a dream come true. So
Yes.
what I would say is that I would encourage each human to recognize how beautiful and valuable they are, so that we can stop that message that you are ugly or not cool or, out of your prime. If we could instead tell ourselves, I not only matter as much as I did when I was 25, I matter more because I am still all that I was at every other age. And this lie that if you have wrinkles on your neck, or if need to in your 80s use a cane, that it's less than, if we could all rise up together and say, it's not true. It is not true that older people are, you know, gross or dumb or irrelevant, and that's the messaging. So that, I guess that's my wish, is that we can just all rise up together. And every time it comes up, like when someone says, for example, oh, you look so great, you don't even look 70, that you might say, this is what 70 looks like. This is what 90 looks like. Or when somebody's like, everyone tells my mom, like, oh, you look good. You don't look 94. My mom says, I look good and I look 94. This is 94, so we
She's
have to,
beautiful.
get the messaging that young is beautiful and old is ugly. It's damaging to us in many ways besides just our exterior. So it's going to take some work, because we are brainwashed into thinking that it is bad and ugly to be old. And if we could get our minds around that and make that shift, we would be powerful. We would be beautiful and radiant, because we would believe that we were.
So beautiful message. And I think our listeners gonna love this episode because it's helping us to reflect on what is coming for us. All of us gonna get there, and sooner or later, all of those actions that we are doing right now will help us to navigate those years at ease, hopefully for many of us. But if not, just embrace it, love it, and be closer to your loved ones as much as you can, because at the end of the day, that is what it matters.
That's
As is
exactly right. And at
right.
your funeral, nobody is going to say, oh, her skin was tight. And, they're going to say she was funny and she was kind and she took the time to listen to me and she cared about music and she cared about her garden and she thought that I was the greatest. That's what people will remember. So put your time and effort into that, rather than this wasting of time and effort to try to be something that we're not, because we're not fooling anybody. You don't, some people, a lot of times as a gerontologist, people come up to me and they say, you will never believe how old I am. And then they'll tell me that they're 60. I already know when they come up. I want to say, you're 60. You're not fooling me. We're not trying to trick anybody. You're the age that you are, and you are spectacular. But I don't think that you're 40. I don't.
So beautiful. And you're absolutely right. I am proud to tell my age. I don't mind. I found
Yes.
funny to see my some of my high school friends still in Facebook saying they're 45. I say, I was in your first communion. I know you're my age. So it's all good. It's all good. I mean,
Yes.
society is pushing us to be looking at some images that look beautiful and attractive, but I think it's so much beauty into the process of better aging. Is how I like to call it. Is better aging. Is an aging
Yes.
process that is gonna be better if we do preventive measurements and we don't have to get there with pain, or at least less pain, that if we don't do those good things for our bodies, minds, and souls.
We're celebrating ourselves at every single age and stage. And you're doing that so beautifully, and your husband's doing that so incredibly. And so I love that you're sharing these messages on this wonderful podcast. And I was grateful to be a guest.
Thank you very much, Dr. Burnight. This has been delightful. And again, I would love to have you next time. We can pick a topic. You are always welcome to this podcast. Please say hello to your adorable mother.
I
She's
will.
gorgeous. And I want to see her more of those videos in TikTok. They're super, super, super entertaining and beautiful. Thank you so much for your wisdom tonight. And if you like the content of our podcast, please subscribe right here and hit the notification button so you will be notified every time we're bringing new content, new experts on health and wellness here to our podcast. And please leave us your positive reviews and your comments. We love to hear from you. Also, visit us in all our social media outlets and our websites that we're leaving here in our comments down below. Thanks for being part of the Express All Health and Wellness community. We really appreciate your support. Take care, and remember, until next time, health is wealth for the body, mind, and soul. Take care.
Thank you very much for listening. And if you like the information that we shared with you today, please subscribe to the Express Soul Health and Wellness podcast and follow us in the social media outlets of your choice. Until next time, please remember, health is wealth for the body, mind, and soul.